All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We have Amanda Brewer on. And Amanda, I am so glad you're here and willing to donate your time to this to really empower our youth and especially with my girl students and possibly taking this way further. I think it's a much needed thing. And so I just want to appreciate you coming on here. But I don't want to steal your limelight. So let's start with after you left high school, kind of what your path was like and what you are doing now.
I had a very rocky start after high school. I graduated in 2007 and went straight into college, very driven, knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was going into veterinary medicine. It's what I'd always wanted to do. I started working as a kennel worker in veterinary medicine and kind of learned a lot on the job when I was in high school. So I was like ready to just move on in. There was nothing stopping me except myself. And so I did. I messed up royally in college the first 2 years, and I actually ended up, if I hadn't have dropped out, I would have failed out. So college did not pan out for me exactly the way I thought it was gonna be. I ended up getting married and having kids and, ended up pursuing my career anyways in veterinary medicine, because you can be a veterinary assistant without a college degree, and depending on the state you're in, you can operate fairly closely as you would to being a technician. And I did end up going back to school online to be a veterinary technician to get my credentials. And it was, slow because I had children and everything. So, but I was doing what I wanted to, doing what I loved. I was the senior employee at my clinic. I'd been there for many years and, was just beneath the doctors as far as I had control over the entire clinic except for the practice owner. And that was all without a college degree. But I did go back to school and wanted to finish my degree.
Okay.
And then, um, so that's kind of how I got to where I was then. But then I realized I didn't want to finish school. I was done with it. I'd spent 10 years trying to finish getting my degree, and I stopped when I was only 10 credits shy of finishing.
Wow. That's
And yeah,
and it
so
gets
it
expensive
pivoted.
too.
There's a lot of student debt that feels like it seems like it didn't go anywhere, but it kind of led me to the pivot where I've gone into now, where I have many more possibilities now than I ever would have if I had stayed in a veterinary clinic.
Okay.
I have more possibilities now, and I still don't have a college degree.
I like that because as somebody that has a college degree and there is value in education, but I feel like college is kind of pushed onto everybody. And
Mhm,
so there's not really, we just don't see a lot of these careers. We see there's engineering and medicine and, nursing and teaching architecture, these mainstream careers, but like there's so many careers within like tech and software that
mhm.
we just, we don't know about. And so, what exactly are you doing right now? What does your day to day look like?
Well, now I own my own business and I'm a freelance social media marketer. So what that means is that I work for myself for many different companies, many different individuals. I'm not limited to working with one company. I can work with however many or how little I want. So I can work with 2 clients or I can work with 10 clients. So my income is not limited. It's only limited by the capacity that I have for work and how much I want to do. If I feel like I don't want to work very much, I don't work very much. So like my day to day, I don't spend very many hours a day working anymore. It didn't start that way. I started off working, building this business while I was still working full time as a veterinary technician. So I would work late nights, sometimes till after midnight or even 2:30 at night, and then I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning to do more work before I actually went to work. So it took a couple years of working really hard, learning a lot. There are people that do go to school for this, and most of them find that when they get out of school, they've learned for this particular set. It's like the formal education hasn't caught up to how rapidly the online space has moved, especially since the pandemic. I mean, even, your students know how much they've had to learn and adapt to being able to function online. So your students now are in a perfect spot where they can start learning more about working online and can ease into these roles as the whole employment spectrum starts to change and things start to shift to being online. These students have an advantage that I didn't have growing up kind of in, towards the beginning when the internet was just starting to get mainstream. I still remember the AOL dial up and MSN Messenger and Yahoo Messenger and the chat rooms and stuff like that. Um, and
Yeah,
these kids will never know the sound of dial up.
we used to
But
get into fights with each other in the house, and if we were mad at somebody while they were in like their Yahoo chat room, we'd go and like yank the cord out, and then of course it would disconnect,
yes,
and you know.
yes,
To antagonize each other, we'd hide the phone line. Of course, then the parents get mad because they can't make phone calls, and
exactly.
yeah. What I
Yes.
really love about your story is that you didn't finish college. And
Mhm.
so that not having a college degree has not stopped you from being successful. And you're kind of at that really sweet spot where you can kind of dictate when you want to work, when you don't want to work. You're
Mhm.
doing something that you love. And, the cliche is, if you do something you love, you don't really feel like you are working at all. What are what would if somebody was looking to do like this digital marketing and they were working for a company, what might a salary range look like for somebody stepping in up to kind of the upper levels?
Starting off, if you have a degree and you're working for a company, your salary's probably going to start off around 40,000 a year. Um, that's just an estimate. That's definitely going to vary, but typically the listings that I see online are starting at about 40,000 a year. And from the people that I know that started out in corporate, that's how they started. And a lot of times, it can go up to, anywhere from 60 to even 100,000 a year, depending on how far you rise in the ranks.
Yeah.
Um, most of the people, yeah, I would say most of at least the pioneers of the freelance world in digital marketing started off in corporate and they rose through the ranks and they were really good at their job, but they realized they just weren't feeling personally fulfilled. And all the money in the world didn't change that. They felt like they were working a lot for not a lot of personal satisfaction. And so they abandoned, this six-figure salary or close to six-figure salary with benefits, usually at a company that has wonderful benefits, like health insurance and things like that. And they abandoned it all to start their own business. And a lot of times made zero money in the first year or two. So hopefully they had reserves or a partner that made money for them because it doesn't happen instantly. It is a lot of hard work and a lot of $0 months to get that first dollar.
And I like that you explain that because I think we tend to glamorize owning a business, and don't get me
Mhm,
wrong, I think it's if you can own your own business, then by all means do that. But we see the after it of the hard work, and so we don't see the sleepless nights and the
mhm,
stress and where's money going to come from. And um, even like Bezos started in, the garage, and we have a local company that puts out martial arts equipment, and he started in his basement sewing like karate uniforms and just having the athletes wear them just to advertise for him. And
mhm.
now he owns a multi-million dollar company, but it took a long time and a lot of work and a lot of stress to get there. So I like that we can be real. That owning your own business is not always easy, and there are a lot of people that fail if you don't have the proper support. And
I would say the majority of people. I believe if you got into the statistics of it, it's something like 90% of businesses will either close, shut their doors, or stop serving within 3 months of starting, and that goes for services or physical businesses.
So, what do you feel is kind of the maybe the one of the biggest differences between those that thrive and succeed, and those that may not succeed. And maybe with digital marketing, it's a little bit different because you don't have a huge overhead that as opposed to say maybe
Mhm.
like a restaurant or something like that. And if I understand correctly, digital marketing is pretty in its infancy compared to a lot of other marketing and a lot of other
It
careers out
is.
there.
It
Um,
is very much so. Um, and that digital marketing it is currently one of the fastest growing fields in the world. In every single country, it is one of the fastest growing fields, because you're not limited by, your physical location. You're not limited by, you can turn any skill set that you have or any experience that you have. There's somebody out there that relates to or focuses in that skill set. Like my background's in veterinary medicine, so I actually serve a client who is a large professional educational organization for veterinary medicine. So it's like I took where I did like nothing with marketing, but I did have some knowledge in veterinary medicine, so I was able to take that and turn it into that. But to your actual question, I think one of the biggest things that separates those that fail from those that succeed, in a business like mine where you don't have a lot of overhead, which is such a blessing. If I had a lot of overhead, I would not be where I am now because I was living paycheck to paycheck, being overdrawn out of my account most of the time, on food stamps, and I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money, and my career that I was in was not going to afford me more money ever. I was kind of topped out where I was and still did not make a living wage, really. But the biggest factor I think that determines who succeeds and who fails is where you choose to quit.
okay.
Most people quit just before they actually see some success. Um, it's kind of like you're biking up this hill and you're biking up this hill and you're just so tired and you can't go anymore and you're like 3 feet from the top and you can't go anymore, so you just quit. You just give up because you can't make it that last 3 feet. Anybody can make it 3 more feet.
Right.
You could get off and drag yourself up that hill, make it that 3 more feet, and then you're going to go down just a little bit before you have to start climbing back up again because it's not easy sailing once you get over that first hump. It's like up and down and up and down and up and down the whole way.
Yeah, I was told yesterday the difference between an entrepreneur and a non-entrepreneur is an entrepreneur refuses to quit when everybody else would have.
Absolutely, 100%. That, and I think also being and it kind of goes along together, being very self-driven. As an entrepreneur, no matter what kind of business you own, whether it's selling martial arts equipment or digital marketing or being a corporate uh, finance advisor, whatever it is, you have to be willing to constantly, constantly, constantly learn something new. Not only about what you do, but also a lot of personal development. There's a lot of psychology that
Mm.
goes into any sort of business ownership, and you have to be willing to invest in your own psychology. So that means get a counselor, get a therapist, get a mentor, get a coach, read a lot of books, and if you don't like to read, listen to audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks constantly because I don't have a lot of time to read, so I'm always listening to an audiobook. And
I
that's big, is the education. You have to be able to teach yourself and want to learn.
Right. And I like that you mentioned audiobooks because I recently, and I don't know why I waited so long, but I recently discovered podcasts.
Mm,
And I'm now completely addicted to them. And I always thought of, I never paid much attention to podcasts. I'm like, but they're so like driving to work, driving home, like going to
mhm.
the grocery store, just so much knowledge and wisdom that you can pick up from those podcasts. So yeah, absolutely learning is absolutely important, whether it's in that traditional school model or just you know reading a book, going to YouTube, watching something, a channel, to get learn something new. So you said that digital marketing is, we kind of went over that it's new and it's one of the hottest, fastest growing business. So would you say that people that are kind of creative and this would be a really really good industry to get into?
It could be.
Okay.
It could be. It's not for everybody. Anybody can do it. I'll say anybody can, but not everybody should. You have to have a very thick skin and be willing to hear a lot of no's. You have to be willing to fail a whole lot, and I think that goes with any sort of business ownership. But I'm sure a lot of the kids know that the online space can be very mean. And that doesn't stop when you get out of school. Especially when you're in digital marketing, you're usually, like I specialize in Instagram. And so yeah, I get to spend all day on Instagram. It sounds fun. It's really, really draining, and I can get tired of Instagram as much as I love it. I can get really tired of it. But yeah, so I get to spend all day on Instagram, um, playing. Essentially, it feels like playing. And people who don't understand exactly what I do, they think I'm just on my phone all the time playing. Even my own family, they think I'm on my phone playing all the time, and I'm like, "No, I'm making money. This is what's buying our groceries right now. I'm making money." But, it's you always have somebody that's gonna come along and criticize what you do. And then in addition to that, you're always gonna look at yourself and criticize what you do. Criticize how you look, like, what you see right now is exactly how I show up in reference to business. Like when I have meetings with clients and whatnot, I usually look like this. And that's because I focus more on relationship building, and I want people to see the real me and have a relationship with me as opposed to this prim and proper girl with the blazer on. So it's social media is kind of like a double-edged thing. You can show up as yourself and feel really comfortable with yourself, but you're also opening yourself up for a lot of mean comments, a lot of negatives, both from people that know you and people that don't know you. So the bullying continues from school. It continues as an adult, whether you're online or not. But the social media can be really, really mean.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I think sometimes friends and family can be the most critical of our
Yeah.
success. And so you would assume, like, I'm going to go tell my best friend about this business I'm starting, or, working for myself, or I'm going to go tell my mom or my dad or, my aunts and uncles. And you think they're going to be supportive and happy for you. And they can be are you sure you should do that? I don't think you're going to be successful. Do you know? And you're like, come on, you guys are so
Yes.
supposed to support me.
Yes, when people started to find out that I was transitioning into this, whereas I have always been working with animals in some capacity, I started volunteering for organizations with animals when I was like 13, and I've never done or wanted to do anything else. And I still have a small contract with the vet clinic that I used to work for. So I get to work there when I want to
Okay.
because I enjoy it because I love it, but I don't have to. And it's kind of like we've done a trade of services there to do that. So that's been pretty cool. Is that now that I am a free agent, um, I can I can trade services, where I want. I actually have traded services with a personal trainer so that I can have a personal trainer at the gym that I could never afford in real life, but she needs what I can do and I need what she can do. So we've been able to do that. So the barter system comes in there, but then I also still have plenty, I feel like I'm getting the bigger deal in both of those situations. I'm able to do that. But, friends and family never understand this field unless they're doing it themselves, and especially, like, the kids that you're teaching at this age, a lot of their parents are probably my age. Like I said, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, so a lot of them are probably my age and are probably fairly familiar with social media, but not as a business.
Right.
Not from a business aspect, and so they think of it as playing, which is exactly what my family thinks of it as, or did think of it. They do, they still do, they still think of it as that, but they see that it is actually working for them. 'Em, they're like, "I don't know how you're doing it, but go ahead." But
Right.
it took a few years before they finally stopped saying, "Are you sure this is what you wanna do?" Or and the worst, most hurtful question is, "Why do you think you're qualified for that?"
Oh,
That was so hurtful, and it came from a good place. It was a lot of people that said it, but it came from such a good place, and that made me just a little more determined, like, I'm qualified for anything that I wanna do as long as I'm willing to put in the work to make myself qualified, to do the education.
right. It's interesting you say that because I feel like the older we get, the more people want to tell us, no, you can't do that. We have
Mhm.
a we have a neighbor whose daughter is about 7, and she walks all around the neighborhood, and then she has a sign, and it'll say, walk your dog $5, pick up trash $4. So she has all these odd jobs she does. And she does that because nobody has said, no, you can't do that. So like if I was going to go start a lemonade stand, like, Josh, you're a little crazy for doing that, but like if my daughter did that, they'd be like, high five, you're an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
you like go after your dream. And so it's almost like you want, the younger you are, the more you can be driven at that younger age to get into where you want to be. You're going to have a whole lot more support. The older you get, people are like, I just, what, why do you feel like you can do that?
That's exactly right, and I feel like one of the one of the biggest things that separates kids who grow up to go on to do something successful versus kids who grow up to maybe not utilize their potential to the fullest, I feel like a lot of that is lack of hope and possibility when they were kids.
Right.
They, there are a lot of kids who are told from a very young age, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they're told that they're destined for a certain they have a certain destiny, that they are destined to perpetuate whatever their father, grandfather, or mother, whatever they did. Um, but then you have other children who their parents pushed them and said, "You can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. Just put your mind to it, and the possibilities are endless." And those kids usually go on to believe that, and they go on to achieve something, some sort of success. But
Right.
you have kids who are just as, if not smarter, that don't ever reach for what they really want because they don't think that they could ever get it. They don't think that they're worth it. They have absolutely zero hope that there are possibilities out there beyond what they have seen other adults do. I think hope is the biggest thing. If I followed my parents' patterns, my parents were teenage parents. They had me when they were teenagers in high school. Neither one of them finished high school. They did go on to graduate college and did very, very well for themselves, but then my father went to prison for a violent crime when I was 10 years old, and he was in prison until I was almost 30. If I had followed the patterns in my life, then there's no telling where I would be instead of where I am now. And I'm not on Wall Street. I'm not some, big shot millionaire success, but it doesn't mean that I won't be in a couple years
That's right.
because I've made sure that I have never told myself or listened when somebody says I can't. I've always said, yeah, you can. And there were periods in my life where I started to believe, this is as good as it's going to get. But I never stayed there. I let myself wallow in self pity for a little while. And then I picked myself up and I said, no, if you want this, you got to make it happen. Because it wasn't easy for Barack Obama to get in office. It wasn't easy for Donald Trump to get in office. They had to work their butts off
Right.
for everything they got. They had to work their butts off. So it doesn't matter which one you support. They both worked really hard to get where they are in life.
That's funny.
And
The
that's
kids
the
are
way it is for all of them. For
right.
everybody who's successful, they have worked their butts off because you have these millionaires that didn't work for what they get. They may have their faces all over the place and be on all the red carpets and stuff, but if they're not working for what they're getting, they're not successful. They're just riding on someone else's coattails. The successes are busting their butts every day to achieve more, better, and bigger, while still learning how to be content with what they have. Because if they never reach a sense of contentment, then they never feel successful as much as they get. They never feel successful.
Well, and I think we've all seen people that have, more material items, more money, more everything than they could ever need, and they still are driven to accumulate more and more. So I think that's important, being comfortable with, what you have, because there does come to a point to where, more is not necessarily better. So
Absolutely.
if I had, a young lady is watching this, and she's like, Amber's pretty dang cool, and I want to follow in her footsteps. So they want to kind of get into digital marketing, and then they want to kind of own their own business, and they want to really kind of thrive in that social media marketing kind of aspect. Where would you suggest that they start? Because I think, like, I have my own internship that I'm doing in marketing, but I know if I just go apply for a marketing job, they're going to go, well, you don't really have any experience. So where would they start, and how maybe might they create like a portfolio, or where, what does that path look like from to where you are if they wanted to kind of take that direct?
Um, Honestly, the first place I would tell them to start would be YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube has resources out there for everything. Everything from what direction to turn a screw to digital marketing. Um, there's always a free resource out there for YouTube that will lay down some sort of introduction for you. And that's actually kind of where I got started. Somehow one day something popped up for me on YouTube that was talking about being a virtual assistant and working from home. And, I was just like, man, I'd love to work from home in my pajamas all day.
Right.
That'd be awesome. And I was thinking, I'd have all this time to take care of my kids and play with my dogs, and which I don't have that much time, by the way, because I'm working a lot. But it spurred the curiosity.
Right.
And so I started learning more and more and more and more and more. There's only so much you can learn for free that's actually going to take you somewhere. But so many of these videos that are out there give you actionable steps for your next step.
Mhm.
They give you companies to look at, mentors to look at. A lot of the people that actually teach you how to be a social media marketer, or there are people out there that specialize just in YouTube, that are just YouTube marketers. You have, like, I specialize in Instagram, so I'm an Instagram strategist. But you can find people that were kind of the pioneers in the field, and most of them have gone on to start little courses and things like that that kind of teach you how. And there are lots of there, and those cost money. But there's also Google has a lot of certifications that you can take at any age that teach you, and then you take a test and it certifies you in lots of different aspects. But digital marketing is just one thing that Google offers. HubSpot is
Mhm.
another one that has a digital academy, with and both of those have such good information for people to begin, to start
Okay.
to learn. But the trick is when you start to learn something and something piques your interest, go dig into it more. When you
Okay.
have the internet at your fingers, you can learn endlessly. And that's what you need to do. When something kind of piques your interest and you're like, huh, immediately dive off into that and go learn some more. But YouTube is a great place to start, especially for younger people, to just kind of figure out, what is this anyways, and meet and actually get to see the face of a lot of the people that were the pioneers of social media marketing.
That's awesome. And it's, you've kind of mentioned being able to work, from home a couple times. And I know there are a lot of people, especially COVID has kind of changed everything where a lot of
Hmm.
people went remote. But I think, with technology, like you were mentioning there, and just the amount of resources, you can literally live anywhere
Hmm.
and work anywhere at the same time. So
Hmm.
um, for those people that do enjoy that remote work, it's there. I have a neighbor who he works for Cox Communications, and they went remote. And at first he really hated it because
Hmm.
he felt isolated for a while. So they started doing virtual meetings in the morning. But
Hmm.
now he's like, I love this. I can go to the grocery store in the middle of the afternoon if I want to. I just, coordinate my time. I can go, for a run when I want to. I'm not confined to the 9 to 5 in an office building. I can show up in a hoodie,
Hmm.
just how I want to.
Yep.
So I'd like to talk about mentors because I know you mentioned mentors a couple times, and we
Hmm.
talked about how important that support is, especially when you're younger, to kind of, whether you will feel motivated that yes, I can do anything, or no, I'm not going to be able
Hmm.
to amount to anything.
Absolutely.
So, how important are mentors? And if somebody wanted to find a mentor, what is maybe one of the best ways to go about seeking out mentorship?
Um, well, how important is mentorship? It's probably the most important thing that you will ever do in any kind of business that you start.
Okay.
That's really going to determine how fast you get to what you would consider sustainable success, which is different for everybody. but you're finding a mentor is going to be absolutely invaluable. I would say that there's nobody who does not need a mentor. And I think really that goes into anything that you want to grow in and do, be it a business or a sport. You have a coach or a private coach or something that would be your mentor. Anything that you want to do. You need somebody who's been there, done that before that can help you navigate the waters as you get into it. They're not going to do it for you, but they're going to
Right.
help you learn how to do it. When you have unexpected things like a client that doesn't pay, and you're $1,000, you're missing $1,000 that you were expecting to be able to buy groceries the next week. When you are an entrepreneur, but in the beginning, that if you don't if you're not smart about it and you don't plan out your finances ahead of time and have a little cushion before you dive into it, you may go hungry if those clients don't pay. And if you're
Right.
working online, what are you going to do? You're going to drive across the country or fly across the world and shake them down? You're not going to do that. Well, I don't know, you might, but I'm not. So, you have mentors that help you instead of being super quick to be like, "Oh man, I got to go get a part-time job now because this client didn't pay and so now I'm short on rent and da da da." You have a mentor to guide you through the steps that you need to take to be able to start to get that payment, to make sure that you collect the payment, things that you never would have thought of before if you didn't have somebody who's already been there, done that, dealt with that crisis already. Um, and not only that, but then they help you turn all of the mistakes that you make, because you're going to make a ton of them. All of the
Yeah.
mistakes you make, they help you figure out how to turn those into learning moments, so that hopefully you don't make that mistake again, or you figure out a way to protect yourself from not getting paid. And been there, done that. I did have a client that I did a lot of work for, and they owed me $1,000, and they just never paid me, and I was just like, and yeah, but I had a mentor that helped me navigate the waters. They couldn't do it for me, but they helped me figure out how to make sure that that never happens again. And I think if I hadn't had a mentor, I probably would, after I got done crying, I probably would have gone and gotten a part-time job and been done with it and said, I'm not doing this anymore. It's too risky. I'm not doing it. But I had a mentor that was like, no, this is just a little hiccup. You're going to throw away all this work you've done for one little hiccup. No, you're going to keep going, and you're just going to learn from it. Had I not had a mentor, I would have quit.
Like that.
Yeah, I
was
was
it
done.
was
I was
was it
done.
tough? Was it tough love? Like, are you just gonna lay there and cry? Or are you gonna get up and do
Yeah.
something?
Oh, yeah. It was tough love. I mean, it was very tough love. And the thing is, I was paying this person. I was paying this person to give me tough love.
I
So
like it.
you can find mentors that are more like peers that, you're not paying for. But the most growth that you're going to get in business from a mentor is usually going to be from somebody that you pay.
Okay.
And that can be scary when you're in the first stages of business, because you don't have a lot of extra income to throw around. And most of these mentors, coaches, membership cohort groups, most of them are a little pricey when you're talking about bootstrapping a business with, no cushion saved up.
Right.
They can be a pretty pricey, and it's a little scary. And I think that fear also can motivate you, though, to try harder, to work harder,
Right.
to push, because you're like, "I've invested in this now, I've gotta make something happen. I've gotta at least make back my money, because if I don't, I am broke."
Yeah. I think we've all had moments where it's like, I don't know if this is working, but I am way too far invested in this to quit
Mhm.
now. I'm just like, we're going to the
Yes,
wheels fall off. Yeah, absolutely. Love
absolutely.
it.
It's like I can't give up on. I've done too much work, because there have been many a time where I've been, worried about a payment that's processing, or the what I'm doing for a client is just not working, not getting the results that I think it needs to be getting. And I'm like, are they going to fire me? Are they going to spread the word around that I'm incompetent? There's just all these things, when in reality they're probably super happy that they're just not having to deal with it, that somebody else is doing it for them. Um, but there's been so many times that I've wanted to just quit. Be like, I'm just gonna go back to, my little pigeonhole, being, working with animals forever and be happy, because I do love that. So I could be happy doing that forever, but
But
I'm not ever going to make the money to achieve the lifestyle that I want. And I don't want to drive a Lamborghini. I just really want to know that if I had to, I can support my family by myself. And now I can. Whereas
Yeah,
before, there was no way. I couldn't even support my family on that income, even though I loved my job. I loved what I did. It was now I get to be with animals when I love them, not because I have to be.
I gotcha. Yeah,
So it's kind of a trade-off.
I always said almost the same thing. I don't need to drive necessarily Cadillac, but I just want to be able to. If I wake up and I have four flats, I need to go. I don't want to worry about how I'm going to get new tires on my car. So
Exactly, exactly.
um,
That's it. That's my goal. I have bigger goals, but that's the main thing. If I can do that, then I'm happy. If I can provide for my family and change all 4 tires at once if I have to, then I'm happy, and I can. And this is, like, the
where
first time
can
in my life that I've
people?
been able to.
That's beautiful. Where can people find you? Obviously on Instagram, but how do they find you on Instagram?
My handle is, at amberbrewer.co because that's my company name.
That's beautiful.
So they
Okay.
can find me there. And I'm on there every day, obviously, because it's what I do. But I'm talking to people all the time on there. That's actually the biggest part of my job, both for myself and for my clients, is to actually DM people and talk to people, because that's where sales are made. So when I'm trying to sell for my clients, I'm building relationships with their potential customers. So it's really a lot of fun because I get to pretty much pretend to be them and deal with all of their conversations and relationships and everything and pretend to be them. So all day long, that's what I'm doing. I'm pretending to be somebody else and playing around on Instagram.
Okay. So here's the hot seat question for you. All right. What is one last piece of advice that you could give to my students that you would have given to yourself a long time ago?
If it feels wrong, don't do it.
Okay.
And that applies to everything in life. But if there's something in the back of your mind or in your gut that says this is not a good idea, don't do it. Be it going to college, dating that guy, um, going to that party, whatever, But in like terms of business, when I first started my business, I marketed the way that everybody told me I should, as far as like how I spoke to potential clients and things like that. And it didn't feel good to me. It
Okay.
felt like you have the stereotypical sleazy car salesman. Well, that's how I was taught to market. That's how I was taught to sell. And it felt awful. So I learned how to do it in a way that made me feel good. That almost made me quit as well because I was like, I can't do this. This just doesn't feel right. I'm not good at selling. Turns out I am good at selling, just not in that way. I only sell if it's right for that person and if it's right for me. It has to feel good. Everything that I do in business, if it doesn't feel good in my gut, I don't do it. Even if it's what everybody else is doing, if it doesn't feel comfortable for me, not comfortable, because you need to be uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
All the time, actually.
Yeah.
but
You have
but
to.
if it doesn't feel right, morally, ethically, intelligently, if it doesn't feel right, I just don't do it.
Okay.
I figure out a way to do it in a way that feels good. And so, and I think I could have avoided a lot of heartache and mess ups in my younger life if I had applied the same principle.
That is beautiful, and I think that will resonate with a lot of my students and a lot of other students who sometimes do things because they feel they have to because of pressure, rather than following that gut instinct.
Then I guess one more follow up that I want to add to that is that if you don't listen to it and you do end up doing the thing that you shouldn't have done, don't beat yourself up about it. What are you going to do about it? It's okay to feel bad for a little while, maybe be sad, upset, whatever, but what are you gonna do about it now? Always ask yourself whenever you've screwed up, because it's gonna happen. Your parents screw up, your teachers screw up, everybody screws up. But it's how you act, how you respond to your screw ups that determines the type of person you're gonna be and how far you're gonna get in life. That's the biggest that's probably the biggest thing that you can do about your screw ups is how are you gonna respond to them? Are you going to let them define you? Are you going to let somebody else's screw ups define you? Are you going to take what you learned by screwing up and turn it into something better? Turn it into something good.
I love it. I love it. Life lessons um, are bountiful in this. So I love it. Well, Amber, I really can't thank you enough for, spending your time with us, giving us your knowledge and your wisdom, your experience, and, you know, giving, new opportunities that, that the youth will be able to realize are out there. So thank you so much.